Bro, where have you been for the past couple months? I've been kind of all over the place. You stopped posting videos. Why did you stop? Because Imposter Syndrome. I felt that with YouTube and content. And I feel like I felt that because I wasn't really saying my story. The issue with personal development is you learn and you grow quicker than your content sometimes. So some of the videos that I've made are already outdated. The big theme for me walking into 2024 is figuring out who I am, because I'm like, I don't know who the fuck I am. Are you glad that you took that break? Like, what did you learn from stopping and posting content? Oh, dude, 100%. I'm so glad I took that break. I've learned so many things. I could talk about this for so long, man, because it's one of the biggest lessons I learned in 2023 is like, you really have to bro. What? I was just thinking about this video. This is gonna be such a weird episode to shoot. This is gonna be such a weird video to shoot.
Why?
Because I'm pretty much like talking to myself for, I don't know, however long this is. You don't find that weird? Well, I mean, I kind of talk to myself all the time, so it might be a weird video to shoot, but I think I'm gonna have quite a lot of fun editing this. So I feel. Yeah, this will be interesting. So like, what did you want to talk about? Well, I mean, it's been like 2 months, right? I'm sure all like 158. I think we're at 158 right now, right? 8 or 9. You know, like who's really keeping track, right? All 158 of your subs are probably wondering, oh, there's a thread here, huh? Where have you been for the past couple months? Well, you see, I've been kind of all over the place. You know, I started making YouTube videos, and before I start this whole story, I've never really introduced myself on this channel. So I'm gonna do that now. My name is Andy. I am 26. I live in Vancouver. I work in tech as a product manager, and I've been making YouTube videos since 2020. And I started because I wanted something to do during COVID, and I was bored, and editing was actually quite fun. And I've been making videos ever since. It's been like on and off, but there was a period where I decided to take YouTube a bit more seriously, and that's when I started really pumping out content, making like a bunch of videos, and then I stopped because I didn't find it funny anymore. It felt like a chore. It felt fulfilling, but I got really good at it though. Like I got good at it from the standpoint of operationalizing my process, because I got to the point where I was putting out 3 videos a week, and I don't know why nobody ever talks about this. Everybody talks about like 1 video a week, right? But nobody ever talks about this strategy, which is like, if you decide to put out a video a week, let's say, just make 3 videos every 2 weeks. So you have a buffer, and then use that buffer to look at your stats, look at your analytics. So you're always building a buffer. And that's what I did for like the longest time. Right, but then you stopped, right? Like you stopped posting videos. Why did you stop? You said it was unfulfilling. Walk me through what happened. I think things got really overwhelming at some point. There are 2 videos that I haven't released yet, and in one of those videos I talk about the concept of breaking down your life into arcs, because I do that. Like I try to segment my life into arcs, which is just like a period of time where you're focused on something. And for a while I was in my YouTube arc where I was just posting basically YouTube content. I was really focused on that. And then I also called it like my business arc. And then I switched to dating arc, because I was like, okay, I'm like 25 at the time. And I was like, okay, I'm 25. I don't have a lot of relationship experience. I want to get some relationship experience. So I switched to my dating arc, and then things kind of got overwhelming because they kind of overlapped. Like that's something that I've run into time and time again in my life, is trying to do one thing, and then all of a sudden I'm in the middle of like, I get really overwhelmed one day, and I look at my list of things to do, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing 7 things. Oops, how did that happen? So I was in the middle of my business arc, and then I went into my dating arc, and then they kind of overlapped, and then things kind of got overwhelmed. And then I stopped seeing the person that I was dating. So that was rough to go through. Didn't have a lot of experience with breakups either. So that was a fun couple months to go through. Lots of learning, lots of pain. And I got to the point where, like I mentioned before, I was making 3 videos a week. And I got really good at just operationalizing the whole process. But at some point, it felt very unfulfilling because I didn't know if what I was putting out was consistent with who I was. And that's a big theme for me walking into 2024 is figuring out who I am. I watched this video like a year-ish ago, and the person in the video, I think it was by like CGP Grey or something. I'll see if I can find it and like link it down if anyone's interested. But the premise of the video basically said, instead of setting goals, set a theme. And so the theme that I picked for 2024 was identity, because I'm like, I don't know who the fuck I am. And a part of that is because I feel like my entire life, or most of my entire life, I've kind of just done things that I feel like I should do, you know, like things people tell you to do without really like thinking too deeply. And now I'm starting to question everything, which is a bit existential, and you lose yourself at times. But it's to really question the foundation that you start off with. Because if you want to, you know, the analogy is like, if you want to build a good house, you should have a good, like a solid foundation, right? So I've been doing that. And what was the original question? The original question was, you stopped making YouTube videos. Like what happened? You said it was unfulfilling. Like what exactly went down? Thank you. And this is something that happens all the time. Like I trail off into multiple different areas. You guys don't see this because I just like edit it out because you can do that with content. But I think about one thing and then I trail off into another area, and then I trail off into another area, and then I have to like regroup. I have to relink the threads. It's like if you're into computers and parallel processing or single threaded / multi-threaded stuff, it's like you have a thread, and then from that thread, you have another thread, and then you have another thread, and then you have to go back and close all the threads. I do this in conversations all the time. It's really interesting. But anyways, going back to the topic at hand, what happened was I got overwhelmed. I overlapped priorities. So, because like the thing about dating is you can't really control that too much, because you can like date, but sometimes a person just comes out of nowhere and into your life, you know what I mean? So I wasn't very intentional with my priorities, and it got to a point where it was just very overwhelming to make YouTube videos because dating was taking up a lot of my time and mental space. And then the breakup happened, which really like took up a lot of mental space. Like my mental health was shit. And then I also felt, it felt very unfulfilling because it felt inconsistent with who I was, which is the whole identity thing. And I was listening to a podcast by Alex Hormozi, great guy. I've been listening to a lot of his stuff. And he said something, he said a lot of things that kind of resonated with me. But one of those things was imposter syndrome. Somebody asked him, do you ever face imposter syndrome? And he just said, no, because imposter syndrome, if you really break that down, like what is imposter syndrome? It's this feeling of you not knowing who you are, or more specifically, you feeling like a fraud. And he's always been an advocate of the truth. And if you are just honest with who you are and where you're at, you're always learning, you're always growing, then you never really feel imposter syndrome. And I feel like with a couple of the videos that I made, and this is the issue with personal development, is you learn and you grow quicker than your content sometimes. And so some of the videos that I've made are already outdated, and some of the videos that I made, I don't really feel super strongly with anymore. You want to like throw out a couple of examples? I'm sure the people that are watching or have been following your content would be interested in knowing. Yeah, so for example, I made a video on social media detoxing. The entire premise of that video is that people use social media and they kind of just scroll mindlessly. You should be more intentional with how you use it, and you should either mute people that don't really interact with you on a regular basis or not really important in your life, or you don't really care about, basically. And you should take initiative to message people and start meaningful conversations on that platform. I don't know if I super agree with that anymore, because I think I'm starting to lean towards just use it less, because the quality of conversations that I've had on there, unless I initiate it, are just not that great. And it's like little stuff like that. Basically what I'm trying to say is imposter syndrome. I felt that with YouTube and content. And I feel like I felt that because I wasn't really saying my story. I wasn't really saying, this is what I've learned and this is what I've experienced. Some of my videos feel like I'm saying, this is how you should do it. Like, this is how you fix something. This is how you should approach something or do something. And I found that the videos that have done better are the ones where I just tell people my mindset / the way that I think. Because that's something that was mentioned in the podcast is, if you talk about your experience, no one can really refute you on that. Like, if I talk about, hi, I've dealt with loneliness for a big part of my life and I still do face it. And this is how I've learned to tackle it. No one can really, dispute that. If you say, this is how you fix loneliness, which is what I feel like I did on my loneliness video. And I feel like I pitched it in a way where I was like, I have solved this. But then I realized after making that video and after going through the whole dating arc thing, there are many different types of loneliness. And I think I researched this once. There are 64 different types or some crazy number. I'll throw a screenshot up here if I can find it. But there's so many different types of loneliness. And I felt like that video was not consistent with who I was. It felt like I said I solved this problem and I solved it for me, even though I still experienced it. I just experienced different forms of it. So it's all that imposter stuff. And that's why all those factors, all those areas is why I stopped making content for a while, and why I was like, okay, I need to stop. I need to breathe, and I need to think about how I'm going to approach this, because I still like this space. I still like video stuff, content stuff, social media and all that. But I need to figure out who I am, and I need to figure out what I want to post and share with the world. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I have friends that I've talked to, and some of them want to start doing social media, but there's all this stuff around social media. And I feel like it opens a black box almost, where the world judges you for what you put out. Or maybe a better way of phrasing that is, you perceive the world as judging you for what you put out. And also you judge yourself. And so it's kind of like you're opening up a box to just judgment. And you have to deal with so much personal shit. Like, if you want to speed run personal development, in a sense, if you know what I mean, just make content, just consistently make content. You'll start questioning who you are. You'll start questioning whether you're good enough. You'll start questioning how people perceive you, because you're like, oh, is the content put out consistent with who I am? And do I want it to be consistent with who I am? Because some people, they make entertainment stuff, right? Like they make really funny things. But in real life, they're not funny all the time. Like, I was scrolling through Instagram today and I found a reel of someone who used to post a lot of hilarious content, but then this one reel was just really, really real. That's funny. No pun intended. But it was just him talking about how he moves a lot and travels a lot, and he's never really felt like he's had a sense of belonging, because he doesn't really have a home if you move around a lot. And the comments were like, oh, I was expecting the funny thing at the end, but there was no funny thing at the end. And it was just an inconsistency in how people perceived him. So, and that makes a lot of sense. Are you glad that you took that break? Like, what did you learn from stopping and posting content? Oh, dude, 100%. I'm so glad I took that break. I've learned so many things. If we're just talking about content, I've learned so many things. If we're talking about life, I've also learned so many things. I'll probably do other podcast episodes if this format kind of works. But if we're just talking about content, and I'll throw a bit of life stuff in there as well. With content and what I just talked about, for me, I've learned that you should just speak your truth. And unless you have actual expertise in something or have accomplished something, don't position yourself as an expert, because that's just going to make you feel like an imposter. Like it kind of did me. And the life thing, I remember I had a experience where I was standing in my kitchen, like a couple feet away from this table that we're shooting on. And I was like, hey, you know what? I should write Christmas cards for the friends that I've met recently that I really value. It was just a random thought that came to me as I was just like standing in the kitchen. I think I was like about to microwave something. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, if I was still making content, no way would I have thought of that. No, no shot. Because the thing about being in the grind and making content, I was trying to make, my entire process was like, I wanted to make more than one video a week. So I would always have a buffer. And I think what I was going for was 3 videos every 2 weeks. And I would batch them. So I would like record like 2 or 3 at once, and then I would edit all of them, and then I would do everything in batches. And when you're in the grind, when you're doing content and you're really in there, you don't have the mental space to be thinking about anything else really. And so when I was in this kitchen, I'm like, this is such a good idea. Like, I'm sure people would really appreciate that. Like, I know I would really appreciate it if I got Christmas cards from someone and they wrote something really meaningful in that. And so I did that, and I gave it to people, and it was great. The life lesson that I learned here is you need to make space for just you, because if you're just thinking about one thing all the time, there's no way you're gonna be able to have space for anything else other than that one thing. And there's a time and place for it, right? Like, this is why I break my life out into arcs. I try to be intentional about focusing on one thing at once, because if that one thing for you is content, then it makes sense to just focus on content. But I think there's a balance, and I'd like to try to make more space in my life for stuff like that. I just came back from a Mexico trip, and I really needed that trip. I really didn't want to go. And I have a podcast for all the people listening / watching. I shot 2 podcasts in Mexico, and I was not planning on shooting podcasts in Mexico. And it just so happened that, you know, when you give yourself space to just think about what you want and what you want to do in life, I was like, oh, I want to make more podcasts because I find it really enjoyable to just talk to people and ask them questions. And then I was like, how can I do this right now? Because I was like, I want to do this so badly. I don't want to wait until I get back home. I just want to do this right now. And so it really taught me, that experience really taught me that you don't need a lot to start a podcast. You just need a couple of phones and good audio equipment. And that could just be the phone and speaker. So I'm super excited to post those. But I think where I was going with this was in Mexico. I had days where I felt like I needed to be productive. And there's a time and space for learning when to take a break and being too productive and feeling guilty for not being productive. But what I'm trying to say is I wanted to do something. I wanted to make content, make podcasts. And I was on a vacation. And I was like, okay, how can I structure my days so I can do both? Because the priority here is the vacation. I want to make space for myself to just chill and relax. But I also want to do this podcast thing. And I want to make steps in this direction. And so something that I'm going to try doing in my life is I want to have one thing that I do every day that moves the needle. And so today was shoot this podcast episode, this weird like episode / video. And the rest of my day, I can do whatever the fuck else I want. And in the past, I used to be very afraid of this format because when it was pitched to me, 2 people pitched this format to me. And when I say pitched, I mean, it's what they did with their lives. They woke up, they allotted, I think one person woke up at like 6:27 or something. It was some oddly specific time. And he allotted like 2 hours to just do stuff, business stuff. And then after that, he would go to his day job. And then after his day job, he would just do whatever. I had another person I talked to that also did the same thing. And I was like, huh, interesting. And when that was first pitched to me, I was like, what do you do with all this extra time? I was blown away by the amount of extra time that this guy had, because I was like, So you're telling me after work, after 5, you just do nothing? Why don't you just spend more of that time doing business shit? Because that's the common advice that you see these days is like time is valuable. And if you want to do something, you got to put in all the time to get it done. The thing is, if you do that, you're not really creating space for yourself. And at some point, you just start feeling like shit. And so what I learned during this trip was the value of that, the value of, and also going back to your question, which is taking me like forever to answer. The original question, which is like, what did I learn from taking a break from content is just to make space for yourself. And this format is something that I want to try. And where I was going at with that example is I want to try this. And the reason I was against trying this when those two people pitched this to me was I was under the mindset of like, you have to use every hour of every day to do work, to do stuff that moves the needle, to do things that get you closer to your goal, which is if that's like starting a business or if that's like making more content to eventually take off so you can like quit your job or whatever. And I was also under the mindset of like, if I give myself all this free time, how can I trust that I will spend it well? Because I feel like I didn't have a lot of self-trust. And that is something that I've learned to slowly develop over time. So what changed your mind? It sounded like you had this mindset shift from be productive, like work, go, to make more space for yourself and trust yourself, and then also give yourself the time to just exist. Because to me, it sounds like there's fear around giving yourself too much time, because if you give yourself too much time, you're gonna like waste it, right? Great question. So I would say there are 2 incidences that changed my perspective on this. So I had this one experience where I woke up and I had this like whole routine and things, and a part of that routine included journaling. So I was like, okay, what do you want to do today? And I was like, you know what? I feel like I want to just do nothing today. I don't want any commitments. Don't put anything in my calendar. Don't schedule anything in my calendar. Don't put down any to-dos. I just want to have no commitments. And I went throughout that day doing things that I just wanted to do. And the crazy thing is, that day was more productive than the past couple days in that week. And it was crazy for me to look back at, because instead of feeling like I had to do something, or instead of feeling like I had to force myself to do this, I just did a bunch of productive stuff. I was like, oh, you know what? I want to go outside. It's like, okay, well, I want to go outside. How about I just like get the shopping done or return this item, or like, oh, like I want to like clean my room. And that experience alone showed me that it's not as scary as I think it is to just give myself free time. Because for the longest time, you're right. Like I had this worry that I would just waste time. I didn't give myself the trust that I did in that instance, in order to just be like, hey, here's some time. I trust that you will spend it well. I have hot takes on the education system. I think that the education system conditions you to think like this to some degree. At least it did for me, because I was like, oh, if I'm not studying, I'm gonna fail, right? So there's always this like it's this fear-based mindset instead of this like love/compassion-based mindset. And that experience really showed me, it's like, oh wow, if I give myself free time, maybe I can just trust myself to spend it wisely and actually get stuff done and enjoy it. Like I remember walking out of that day and I felt so fulfilled and accomplished. And so that's one of the stories. The second story was I was at this dance event. This was a partner dancing event. I think it was house. No, I don't think it was house. Salsa? No. Some partner dancing event. The way it worked was there's a bunch of guys and a bunch of girls. And I forget what people stood in the middle. I think it was like the girl stood in the middle and the guy stood on the outside. And after every dance, they would rotate. And there's like a class at the beginning or whatever. A dance happened. And then we rotated, and I was face to face with this girl, and I was dancing with this girl, and she said, hey, just relax, breathe. And I remember being very tense. I remember thinking to myself, how can I relax? How can I breathe when I am not hitting these steps correctly? Because I was not in a optimal headspace, let's say. I was not feeling the best that day, but I forced myself to go outside because I was like, listen, you need to go outside because it's good for you. Get some sunlight, walk, physical activity instead of staying in bed all day. So I forced myself outside, and I wasn't in the best headspace, and so I was slower than what I was used to, just in terms of thinking, and I was not picking up the steps as quickly as I wanted to, and I was so focused on the steps and so focused on like how to do it right, like how to do it properly, instead of just like letting go and going with the vibes because I wanted to hit all the steps and get it right. And this girl was like, hey, just like relax and breathe. And I was like, in my head, I was like on the outside, I was like, okay. But in my head, I was like, how can I relax and breathe when I am trying to dance with you and I'm not hitting all these steps correctly and I'm slower than what I'm used to, and all these thoughts. And I remember walking away from that and thinking to myself, damn, is this who I want my future partner to be? Because this is also when I was in my dating arc. I was like, do I want my future partner to be like this? And I'm like, no. I think I would want my future partner to be calm and collected. You know, there's a branch of therapy called internal family systems, and one of the concepts of IFS is what it's shorthand for, is the 8 C's. There's like 8 C's. It's like calm, compassionate, I think was one of them. There's a bunch of others that I don't remember now, but I was like, I want my future partner to be calm and to not be anxious all the time and to not feel like they have to do something or go somewhere. I just want them to have the ability to be calm. And I was like, how can I expect that of someone if I do not have that myself? Because at the time, I didn't feel like I had that myself. And that whole experience, like, I don't even remember her name. She probably doesn't even remember my name. I'll probably never see her again. Maybe I'll run into her. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that whole experience really changed my life because it made me realize, I was like, I, on a day-to-day basis, am not very calm. I feel like I always have to do something, or I'm always thinking. I think a lot, and I don't create space for myself just to be calm. And so that made me become more aware of being calm and how fucking either stressed out or freaked out I am most, if not all the time. So those two instances are what got me to shift from this mindset of like go, do everything all the time, to maybe if I just do one thing every day that moves the needle and is for this one goal that I'm going to define, and right now it's like podcasts, like I want to make more podcasts, then maybe, just maybe, I can give myself the freedom for the rest of the day to do whatever I want, and maybe I won't waste the day, because maybe, just crazy idea, maybe I have my best interest at heart. Crazy idea, now that I spell it out. And maybe I will use that time well and actually spend it doing what I want to spend. Maybe my body will just naturally know what it wants. And it's crazy that we have this concept of wasted time. I was listening to the John Wang podcast on my trip to Mexico when I was like flying around. I downloaded it and re-listened to my conversation with him, and one of the things that he says in that is like, this concept of wasted time is so imaginary, because we define what is wasted time and what isn't, and it's just based off of invisible guidelines. And I'll walk through this. I'll walk through an example here. One of the examples is playing games is a waste of time. It's like, okay, the thing about statements, and I could do a whole other, I could talk about this for so long, man, because it's one of the biggest lessons I learned in 2023 is like, you really have to be careful about the advice you take, because advice is so contextual and everybody is different. Going back to this gaming thing, that can mean so many different things for so many different people. If you tell someone, so advice, gaming is bad. Let's apply that to a variety of different people, okay? First is a gaming addict. Imagine an alcoholic, but with gaming. One of my friends one time said, would you give an alcoholic alcohol? Would you give an alcoholic who's trying to quit alcohol? No, that's fucking dumb. That's crazy. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that with someone with a gaming addict, someone who games, is addicted, and knows that it's not good for him, right? So advice, gaming is bad. Person, gaming addict, applies. Let's apply another sample. Let's say you're talking to somebody and they live very far from people, right? They live in a rural area, let's say, and they don't really have easy access to people. They can't, unless they want to drive 3 hours, there's no way they're going to be able to meet up with their friends. And they keep in touch with their friends by gaming. Advice, gaming is bad. Person uses gaming in order to stay connected with his friends. Doesn't really see it as a problem because it doesn't impair them from completing their major things that they want to do in life. So that let's say that's school, getting schoolwork done, or going to your job, whatever, right? Advice does not apply to person because person is different. And so going back to this concept of wasted time, different people define wasted time differently. And for the longest time, this goes back to what I said before about identity and questioning literally everything that because actions come from decisions. Decisions come from beliefs. Beliefs come from what you choose to believe in. Either someone told you it, or either you've learned it through experience, or either you've put it together yourself. And beliefs can change so much about your life, how you perceive the world, how you treat people, how you make decisions, and the actions that you take. And so questioning your beliefs and making sure that they're really yours, making sure that the beliefs that you currently believe in are actually a part of this foundation that you can call yours, not just something that someone told you, is so incredibly important. Because if it isn't yours, if somebody just told you this, if someone just told me hey, don't play games, it's a waste of time, and I just took that and I didn't really think much about it, it's like a crack in my foundation that may or may not spread when I get older. And that may or may not spread depends on how much that belief impairs me from doing things that are actually authentic to me in the future. So I don't even remember what your original question was, but I just wanted to rant. It was about shifting mindsets on wasted time and making space for myself. But I just wanted to rant about that because I felt compelled to, because it's crazy how important beliefs are, and yet I feel like some people don't question their beliefs. This is one of the issues with content, and this is also why I wanted to start making podcasts, because I found that the best takeaways I've gotten are not from videos of somebody telling me what to do, but are from videos and content showing me a perspective of something that has made me question what I currently believe in my life. And questioning your beliefs either lead to you discarding the belief because it no longer serves you, or you finding your own, I call it integration. So it's you either find your own experiences in order to back up that belief, or you go looking for things like past experiences, interactions with people, proof, evidence that belief is true. Could you provide a concrete example? Yeah, so one example is human design. And human design and astrology are similar because they rely on the stars and the planets / celestial bodies to tell you things about yourself. So you go onto a website, you put in your birth date and time. The time is really important. And then it tells you things about yourself. And on my Mexico trip, I was just reading things about my human design. And one of the things that is written in your human design report is, hey, these are things that are in your report. I would encourage you to go out and test these things in your life and find if they are true. And so going back to the reason I bring this up is because of beliefs, right? It's if somebody tells you something, there has to be an integration period. You can't just believe them. So there has to be an integration period. And if you don't know the answer to a belief, or if you don't have enough evidence to prove or disprove it, you go out into the world and you test this belief. So that was my whole spiel on beliefs and identity and all that stuff. What else do we have? How long is? It's been like almost an hour. What else do we have on here? Yeah, you're right. We should probably wrap this up soon. I think we covered some stuff on here. Here you go. You introduce yourself. Yeah, what's next? If you want to start wrapping things up, what is next? What do you have planned for this channel, this content? I don't know, life. All right, life. Still figuring that out. I'm gonna be real, dude. My job is killing my soul. Like I wake up on a consistent basis. I just got back from Mexico. Before Mexico, for like a solid probably 3 weeks, every single day, I would write in my journal like I don't want to go to work. So I need to figure out how to solve that problem. I have some ideas. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. Content wise, I want to make more podcasts because I think there's just a lot of value in the conversations that I have. And I think it could provide a lot of value to people. And I think it's a lot more meaningful and impactful than just telling people what to do, because I'd like to believe that people are so different, and I want people to have the ability to think for themselves. And I want to bring conversations to the forefront of people with just really interesting guests. And I want to do this because I've learned a lot from just having these types of conversations with people in my life, and I want to give those to people. So you're going to see more podcasts. You're going to see more people on this, like guests on this channel. I have a bunch of people booked for the next like 2 months. And I'm super excited to start making this type of content because I think that it's a lot more consistent with who I am and what I want to put out into the world. And then you're going to see like clips and shorts and maybe like the odd random video here and there. There's 2 videos that I need to post that I haven't posted because I shot them and then I was like, no, I don't really want to post these, but I'll still post them. I'll find a way to reformat the video so that it's more consistent to who I am, and I'm going to post them because I made those and I still want to post them. So you're going to see those 2 videos, and then you're going to see a bunch of podcast stuff. So that's the current plan for now. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I don't know what's going to happen with this format. I'm actually really curious seeing what happens with this format as well. If you like this format, I think I've been talking to myself for like an hour. I don't know, leave a like or comment or something. Let us know. And you know what it does? It solves the problem, which is actually one of the worries that I had when I considered the whole it's like, what if I run out of guests? It's like, oh, well, if I can just make a format where I talk to myself, I'll never run out of guests, you know? Yep. That is definitely one way of thinking about it. You know, one time I was visiting my cousin, and she actually talked to me about how I talk to myself in person. This is pretty normal to, like, I talk to myself in person all the time. And she was actually freaked out at some point because I was doing it really loudly. and she was like, hey, can you like stop or like do it quieter? It like freaks me out a little. And I'm like, ooh, okay. Got a little self-conscious there. But anyways, thanks for coming on. And I will probably see you on again. Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for having me on. And thank you all for listening, and have a good one. All right. Goodbye now. Bye. Peace. Bye.